Yeah, no, I'm excited for it, honestly, to share my thoughts. This is the first person I've shared a lot of my thoughts on this. I've been in the film room for quite some time, so I'm excited to share a lot of my thoughts on some of at least the top five, top six guys from each position.
Did you like it though? Did you?
Let's get with this wide receiver. What's your top five wide receivers?
Okay, all right. So for wide receiver, at five, I have two guys actually tied. And I know you don't really want me to do this to you, but it was really hard to.
If that's what you got it.
Yeah, if they're really hard to decide between, so I just didn't. It's Chris Olave and Jamison Williams. I have them both at five. I like both their styles. I'll start with Chris. I think he's one of the smoothest route runners in this class. I just think he keeps his speed throughout his routes. He does not slow down in or out of his breaks. He's a very technical route runner. He is very precise to the step with his routes. And then he also is a great aggressive catcher of the football. I think he is a little guy. Yeah, he's a little bit smaller on the smaller size, but he plays like a big guy. Goes up aggressively for balls. Doesn't really care about his body too much. Will give his all every single play, whether he has the ball or not. And he understands concept and combination routes very well. Does not run into other guys' routes. He knows how to hold safety so that guys can work underneath him and vice versa. He knows how to work underneath when a safety is being pushed off. I like a lot of aspects of his game that I didn't know that I would like because he's a smaller guy. And he was working with a lot of good receivers around him like Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I thought he was going to be kind of like last odd man out. But I really like a lot of his style, a lot of his play, a lot of his technicality. And like I said, his full speed, like I was talking about earlier, I like players that play at full speed. You know what I mean? So he definitely does it.
Like my five guys are all in the same tier. They're pretty close to me. For me, like I don't.
Okay.
They're pretty close. I really like Olave. I really like him, and like he just continued to grow on me when I think about his tape because it's like I think he could do it all. Think he could win at all levels. I really like him.
I don't know that he could be a true one for a team, but he definitely would be an insane compliment to like a DK, like if he were to go replace Tyler Lockett, or an insane compliment to, you know what I mean, like a big X receiver who's going to push the top off of coverages and let him work underneath. I think he would fit in extremely well. One place that comes off the page for me is if he goes to the Chargers and works with Mike Williams, because Keenan Allen is kind of aging out and moving on his way out and everything, and they seem to be kind of moving on from him, but keeping Mike because they just re-signed Mike. That would be a great spot for him. A lot of people want Garrett Wilson to go there, but I honestly think Chris Olave would be maybe an even better fit there just because of the speed and technicality that he brings from his routes and everything. And not that Garrett Wilson isn't technical or anything like that. I just think that, again, it's a better complement fit there. But,
Brendan Donahue got him going to the Saints.
The Saints? Okay.
First round to the Saints.
I like that too. I mean, a good compliment to like Mike Thomas, Traquan over there. You know what I mean? Their Z receiver right now, pretty much for their starting position, is Deontay Hardy. He just changed his name, but so
got to beat out.
Yeah, so I don't think that's gonna be much to beat out right there. So, so I like Chris Olave, and then Jamison Williams reminds me of, honestly, like I don't like to do a lot of player comps, but this screams at me every time I watch him is no, Deshaun Jackson, actually.
Okay.
A lot of Deshaun Jackson similarities. I do think Deshaun is a little bit more technical and a little bit better at short area breaks and like fade stops and hard breaks. But Jamison Williams is definitely that deep ball guy. He's definitely the take a shot guy out of this entire group, out of this class. He's going to be that Z receiver, that classic Z receiver that pulls tops off of coverages. He's going to push the ball down, help you push the ball downfield every play. If you want to, but I don't think he's going to get a lot of volume. I think he's end up going to be one of those guys who's going to get like 5-6 targets a game, 3-4 catches a game, and 100 yards. You know what I mean? So boom bust kind of guy. I'm big on him. I like his I like his ability, his breakaway ability, his speed. Obviously, in my opinion, the fastest wide receiver in this class. I don't know if that's by fact, by 40 time or not, but on film, he looks like the fastest wide receiver in this class. I just think some of his knocks are just his short area breaks. I just don't think his route tree is as diverse underneath as it is deeper. His deep area of the field, he works really well. Short area of the field, not so much. Main thing he does in the short area of the field is a lot of screen usage, screen game, that sort of work. I think he's a classic Z receiver. But again, one of those boom bust guys like a Henry Ruggs or one of these sorts of guys who he's not going to get a lot of volume, but you'll get a really good ADOT and high return per catch. Lots of yards per catch, pretty much. So definitely not somebody I would pick, or put a lot of weight into, or think is going to be anybody's wide receiver 1, but definitely could come and be a solid wide receiver 2, complement to a strong X receiver, for sure. And then at number 4, I have Garrett Wilson. So that's a little controversial. A lot of people don't.
4.
I tell them
4.
We're
about to get some surprises because you just made the other 2 tied for 5, and you got Garrett Wilson at
4.
Man, that means you high. I bet you are very high on Dotson. It's either Dotson. I bet you it's Dotson.
You'll see.
Bell or more. Probably Bell or Dotson. You are very high on. It's one of these guys you got way higher than me. But go ahead.
You'll see. But anyways, with Garrett Wilson, really great all-around receiver. Does everything extremely well. Doesn't do anything
number particular. 1, by the way.
Okay, all right.
But like I said, all of them in this tier, and they're very close.
Okay, all right. Well, I actually have a tier break from in between 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. But for Garrett Wilson, though, just an athletic dude. Definitely a natural receiver. Great diverse route tree. Pretty much one of the most complete route trees out of this entire class. Very detailed oriented route runner, just like Chris Olave. And very aggressive at the point of attack when it comes to catching the football. I think he's definitely probably one of the most aggressive. Does not care about his body, will go up for the football, catches with his hands, and has incredible hands. His catch radius is massive, and he catches pretty much anything and everything that comes into it. Big fan of Garrett Wilson. Don't get me wrong. I don't know that he's my number 1.
One of 2 5-star recruits in his wide receiver class. Only one of 2.
You mean coming out of high school into
yeah.
So and I remember that too. I just think he definitely should be tempered a little bit, because when you're outperformed by Jackson Smith and Jigma, a younger guy, I do temper expectations a little bit, just because you had him on your team. You also had Chris Olave, and you had CJ Stroud, and you had Travion Henderson. And just like we talked about with the LSU situation with all those guys, we were wondering, like, are all these guys that guy? You know what I mean? Are they that guy? Or are they all just in the right place at the right time? I think that might have been this past year a little bit more right place, right time, rather than that guy. And that's kind of what it is for Garrett Wilson with me. Is I'm just not sure if he's that guy that everybody's saying he's going to be 101, or not 101 necessarily, but 101 as far as wide receivers. For me, I just feel like the lack of size is kind of a big thing. If he's going to be a true wide receiver 1 for somebody, I don't know that he's big enough to do that. And also, too, the blocking. Their effort was there, but he was a little shy from contact, was not the most aggressive after the catch as far as, running with the ball and craving contact or leading into contact. A little bit shy from that stuff. And then also, too, body positioning on blocking. He wasn't the greatest at that without the ball. And so there were a couple knocks for him as far as just size, and then, things without the ball in his hands. So yeah, no, I really like this player. I think he's good. I just starting to see him as the number one wide receiver on people's boards, and I'm not there with him, to be honest. So, and I think it is a little bit more of a drop off for me than from the top tier guys down to him. But a landing spot like he's being overly projected to, like the Chargers, would obviously be a huge upside. Being tied to a quarterback like Justin Herbert is lights out. So if that's actually where he ends up going, then my tune could change a little bit, but not much. I'm really not going to adjust too much based on landing spot. I've learned that lesson.
Going number 8 to the Falcons.
To the Falcons, okay. That would be a good fit. Honestly, I mean, obviously the Falcons need some wide receivers. Who's their number one receiver right now? It's like Olamide Zaccheaus or something like that. So, and I think he's a restricted free agent, so I don't even think he's really on the roster. So, so it's again, that's a landing spot thing where I don't think he's a landing spot proof wide receiver. Like, let's say the Jets ended up taking him because the Jets are rumored to be after a wide receiver early on in the draft. That would diminish his value for me. Corey Davis is still there, and Elijah Moore runs a lot of the same short area routes that he does and is better after the catch. And, I just don't see him fitting on a team like that. I think Garrett Wilson is a little bit more fit dependent than some of these other guys I'm going to mention in my top 3, and a little bit more landing spot dependent. And that's what I want out of my, especially pre-drafting my making rankings, is I want my wide receivers to be landing spot proof. And I think some of these other guys are a little bit more landing spot proof than Garrett Wilson is. I think he's going to have to fall into a situation that's beneficial to him more than anything, rather than just letting his talent shine through and just being a good receiver. And then at number 3, at the top of my second tier is George Pickens, actually. So you were wondering if it was Jahan Dotson or David Bell or any of that, but it's actually at number 3. I have
George 5-star.
Exactly. I have George Pickens. So he was a 5-star. That's something I was going to lead with. Was he was a 5-star coming out of high school into college, and his college career was cut short, drastically cut short by being plagued with injuries and different things. But the film I did have of him was just wild film. He's just a dominator. The dude's just aggressive with and without the ball. He's 100%. He's going to drive you into the ground as a blocker, and he's going to run you over with the ball after he catches the ball. He's got the frame to build on. He's a skinny guy at 6'3", but he doesn't act like a skinny guy, and he's definitely got more weight to put on for sure. And I always like seeing that out of guys coming to the next level, is the ability to put on more weight, especially at the wide receiver position. And then I honestly really like his separation skills as far as basketball style, boxing out, like we were discussing. He's one of the best in this class, if not the second best in this class at that. And I just think he'll definitely be able to excel right away. And he's one of those wide receivers now that I start to be like, okay, no matter the landing spot, I do see success here for him. I do see his ability to be able to get open. I see his ability to dominate one-on-one situations with corners and be the aggressor and not be, passive aggressive or anything like that. And so I just, I really like his game in a big way. I'm higher than George. Admittedly, I'm higher on George than most people are, mainly because I'm not afraid of the injury thing. I think a lot of people subconsciously or consciously knock prospects for being hurt or having large chunks of their career taken out from being hurt. And I'm just not going to do that with George Pickens. I see what I saw on film, and I loved it. And he seemed like he recovered enough when he came back for the title game against Alabama. I mean, he was driving people on the ground, and he was being his old self again. We just didn't get to see it for a full season. Had we got to see it for a full season, I think he would be in the conversation, easily in the conversation for automatic top 3, just right there with Garrett Wilson and Treylon and Drake London, like most people have. You know what I mean? But he's up there for me, just above Garrett Wilson, just because mainly He has a lot of the same ball skills that a guy like Drake London has. He's not as big or as physical, but he definitely it's all there, and he's definitely one of those true X receivers who can go on and be a true number one and dominate in the red zone, be an underneath receiver, dominate in the slant area, the hook to curl area, and then also work downfield. His ability to work downfield reminds me a little bit of T. Higgins, where a lot of people expect him to work underneath because he's technical, and then he ends up blazing past you and works downfield because George Pickens does have speed behind him. So, I'm big on this guy. I really big on him too because I think he's at a discount right now because of the injuries and because of the lack of film and because of the doubt that people have. People are get nervous about often injured players, and rightfully so. But I just try not to let the injuries get in the way. If anything, I try and take advantage of the discount that they provide. So it's definitely something I think is going on with George Pickens.
George Pickens, early declare, young breakout age, 5-star recruit coming out of high school, NFL pedigree, crack ball well. I didn't really see the separation like that on film, and I was wondering, was he a possession receiver? Like his film didn't really stick out for me like that. But let's say he got some good things going on with him. So you would definitely be getting him at a value if you have him that high. You'll have all the George Pickens.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him mocked to the first round at all. I see him mocked to the second round, going to the Browns, and another guy mock I look at on Walker Football or whatever. But so how you think about that place if he was to go to Browns?
that's actually not a bad spot at all. I mean, with the route technician that Amari is, and the ability that Amari has to play both X and Z. I mean, shoot, you could fit Amari over at Z and then input George at X, and that's a deadly combination because that's exactly what you want too at wide receivers. You want an old salty vet teaching the younger guy kind of how it works a little bit simultaneously on the field. You know what I mean? And that would be a good situation, honestly. And shoot, at the end of the day, you can't argue about quarterback situation because Deshaun Watson. I mean, say what you want about him off the field or whatever, but that's a top 5 quarterback talent there now. So that would be a good spot, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. And as Amari ages out, honestly, it's a perfect situation because as Amari ages out, you could work George Pickens from being the wide receiver 2 to his wide receiver 1 into becoming the true wide receiver 1 there and have a young wide receiver tied to Deshaun Watson for the next 5 to 10 years. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be a bad one at all. So I kind of like that fit. That's a good one. I didn't know he was being mocked to them. And early second, you were saying it was early second round capital to them?
I don't remember. I didn't write it down, but I just put it was second round to the Browns.
Yeah, so I actually would like that, honestly, as far as that goes. But
so he was your number 3?
Yeah, and then at number 2, this is up in another tier. So that was my Pickens and below is a tier 2. And so we're going up into my first tier here. And at 2, I have Treylon Burks.
I knew it. I knew you was a London Drake guy.
Yeah, and I've been wrestling back and forth. I'll be honest with you. At the beginning of this process, I had Treylon at 1. As far as
I had him at 1 for a while.
Yeah, as far as all around game and being a pure athletic freak, Treylon wins that game between the two. But as far as being NFL ready and being a dominant receiver and dominating specifically the red zone, that's Drake London. Drake London is a touchdown machine. I mean, shoot, he only played 6 games last year, I believe, due to injury, and he scored 9 touchdowns in them. So the whole thing with him is he's just a touchdown machine. I think we're seeing the second comings of a Mike Evans with Drake London. And then with Treylon, I think we're seeing like a larger, little slightly more versatile version of DJ Moore. So take with that what you will, but and again, like I said, I don't really like comps, but those are very similar to their styles of play. And I really think that Treylon will be a little bit more dependent upon how the team that he ends up getting drafted by uses him. And then as far as Drake London, I think he'll be much more. He's just going to go dominate corners, throw the ball up to him. He'll score some touchdowns in the red zone and be ready right away. Just because of his jump ball ability, his basketball-like instincts on high pointing the football, different things like that. But more towards Treylon, I just think after the catch, he's the most deadly wide receiver in this class. He's like a big, large running back with the football after he gets the football, after in an open field too. You know what I mean?
Exactly what I put. Looked like Derrick Henry playing wide receiver.
Yeah. Honestly, it's funny they say that because I actually started thinking of like a faster Ramondre playing wide receiver because he had the same cutting style, like jump cuts and speed cuts. They have a lot of similarities there. And then they run over their toes very similarly too. They're heavy over their toes and they mow people over if they are in a bad position. You know what I mean? So I saw that, and then a little bit of DJ Moore and Debo mixed in a little bit too, just because of the ability after the catch, the fluidity of his running. He's a very fluid runner, and I really don't think that his 40 time that he got at the draft, I think it ended up being like a 4.56 or something along those lines. Yeah, I really don't think that's indicative of his actual true game speed. What I saw on the field was like 4.3 type speed. And it was, breakaway type speed. And I did see from online that on Twitter that he was clocked actually at 22.6 miles per hour during the season, which was one of the highest, clocked speed rates in the entire country at the college level this past year. So I really don't think speed or his 40 time is indicative truly of how he moves or how he runs. If anything, it gave us a little bit of a discount on Treylon because now he's kind of falling down boards. He was at one point the unanimous 102 or 103, and now he's being argued with like people are moving Garrett Wilson like yourself or moving Garrett Wilson over him or moving Drake London like I did over him, different things like that. And now you're starting to see Treylon actually get a little bit of a discount. You're starting to get, you know what I mean? So him, if he goes at the 105, 106 in Superflex drafts, then that's money right there. You got to jump all over that. You know what I mean?
For me, if he like I said, I've been flip flopping between him and Wilson, and he has the highest ceiling for me. Unless some kind of way London go to his pro day and run a fast 40, which I think is impossible. People that keep pushing their pro days back don't run fast 40, so I'm pretty sure.
It usually means they're working on their 40. And
he's going to give me a 4.6. I already know it. So I'm not worried about him running a fast 40. But Trey Albert, I guess, how much did the 40 hurt? A little bit. I thought he would run a faster 40.
Well, everybody thought
crazy. Like they had, I bet on when I was betting the props. I got the best of props for the combine, and they said over under 4.4. I said, oh hell no, he ain't running that fast.
Was it 4.40, 4.4 flat? That was
hell no.
Well, it was because he was being discussed as a 4.3, 4.35 guy.
I knew that wasn't gonna be the case.
Yeah, at that size to be able.
That would have been some DK territory.
Yeah, and not just that, but his change of direction is ridiculous compared to DK. So, like, being able to change that direction, you're probably not moving at that high of speed. But like I was saying, his in-game speed was clocked at like 22.6, which is wild. Like some of the, I do think he is a bit more of a momentum runner. So, but I do think after the catch, like I was saying, he's the nastiest person in this class, both with speed and size and balance, contact balance, and everything. Just as a runner of the football, I think he's going to be one of the most versatile tools, one of the best after the catch. Everything across the board is Treylon Burks is definitely that utility tool, that new guy that Miami signed Tyreek Hill to come be the Debo there, and Debo is what he is, the utility or the H-back or whatever you want to call it in San Francisco. And these guys are coming out who are wide receivers, running backs, do it all kind of guys. that's this guy. I think Treylon is that prototypical guy to be able to fill that role for whatever team wants that out of a wide receiver in
He's
this
being
league.
mocked 22 to the Packers.
To the Packers?
I know you love it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one actually. Yeah, that would be sweet because a LaFleur with that kind of a guy would be great because you can see him not really being filling that Devontae role, but really filling that Aaron Jones role. To be honest with you, like a lot of the short area stuff, a lot of working out of the backfield, whether it be getting ball handed off to him or tossed to him or running routes out of the backfield, different things. So that would actually be a good fit. The other fit I've been hearing is to the Cowboys too, and I don't know how I feel about
Taking
that.
a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, but that's what they said about when he took CD. So I don't know.
But their pick is way. What is like the 24th? 24th. So he's not going to be there. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's only 2 picks later than the 22nd though. So they could move up a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I have heard them out. I was like, you never know with the Cowboys. The Cowboys know they don't need to draft another receiver high, but you never know what they're going to do. So
yeah, Jerry likes to keep his offense fully loaded. So and I've heard a lot of people, local beat writers out of Dallas, talking about
ties. They got ties to Arkansas and everything. So
exactly.
If he dropped that way, I can see him pulling the trigger. Now, if he's trying to put together a championship team, do he need to pull the trigger?
Yeah, I don't think the fit is right. Honestly, I think you're just going out and getting yourself another CD. You know what I mean? Which you don't need. What you need is a Drake London. You need a George Pickens. George Pickens in Dallas would be a fit and a half. I'll tell you what, that would be a compliment for sure.
You don't
to
like
CD.
Gallup?
I just think that's a project that they won't give up on. I think they try and treat him like this big red zone threat, and he's like a 6'1" average size receiver. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, he goes up for balls and he puts everything on the line. He's one of those receivers, one of those guys who puts everything out there, and he goes up for things and puts full force out and full effort. But my thing with him is you can do better. You know what I mean? You can do better at the X position, at the X receiver position, especially if you're going to use CD out of the slot and at the Z position like they've been doing. So I think you need to be more focused on filling that X position with a true X, not a guy like Michael Gallup who tries to play X and is not really built for it. Michael Gallup is an X receiver, don't get me wrong, but he's just not built for it. Even though he does make good plays here and time again, there's those nasty back of the end zone catches that he does have under his belt. But I prefer a larger target in a George Pickens. I prefer a larger target in a Drake London. I prefer a larger target in like a guy like Mike Williams or a guy like that. A true classic X receiver is a very underrated tool these days in the NFL, in my opinion, just because people are so obsessed with speed. Having a guy who can work underneath and dominate receivers physically and guarantee a first down almost all the time, like Mike Thomas used to do for the Saints, is an underrated thing these days. So I'm big on it, but that's why I'm bigger on Drake London than I am on Treylon, just because I believe in that a little bit more as a certainty despite landing spot.
And you have already pretty much went over Drake London, so
one.
I mean, for me, he got a number of icons showing up for him. So, I like him, but how much I like him really depends on his athletic ability. And and since he haven't done any tests coming out of high school, I would like to finally see some. He did do a shuttle and a vertical, which neither was impressive. So I would like to see some athletic testing at his pro day. It depends on how much I like him. Because with his film, I like to see separation on the field. He one of them guys. I'm open minded because he has separation as the catch point instead. So I'm open minded about him. But I guess it's going to be about how he tests and where he's drafted at, and he's currently being mocked to the Commanders or Commandos, whatever they call.
Yeah,
So
the
tell me how you
Commanders
feel
now.
about that.
Yeah, that would be a rough spot for him, honestly. And just so everybody knows that this is wide receiver 1 for me, Drake London, top of the top for me. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Having Terry McLaurin already there as an X receiver. I mean,
It don't matter where he go be the number 1. Ain't that what you
yeah,
said?
yeah. So my point is just the style of play. I think Drake London is a completely different type of player as Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's a little bit more downfield. He would have to convert to the Z position a little bit more and play primarily there, which I think he'd be able to do. He's a little bit more of one of those guys who can do that. But Drake London would come in and be the one there, in my opinion. I think he would come in. He's much more talented than Terry McLaurin. McLaurin is not as good as wide receiver prospect as him. And he would demand short area red zone target usage. And similar to what we got out of Michael Pittman this past year, it would be the same kind of usage from Carson, same kind of connection between Carson Wentz and Drake London, I would imagine. And a lot of short area red zone type stuff. And my big thing, though, too, with Drake London, though, is I think his ability after the catch is underrated. I think he's a very angry, aggressive runner. He turns and gets upfield very quickly, always fights for more, and has very good pad level when he runs the ball. He's a very tall guy, but he runs very low, very hard. So I do think that after the catch, he will create quite a bit and be able to generate things for an offense that they maybe don't even expect him to do. I think he'll initially be used in the red zone as a red zone threat, big area target or short area target, and then things will expand from there. But no matter where he ends up, I think he will become a team's number 1 X receiver right away, and a team that needs one will definitely, benefit from him being that. Atlanta would be a great spot. We were talking about George Pickens going to Cleveland and that being a great spot. Shoot, Drake London there, that would be a fantastic spot. Then we'd have to argue who's the true number 1, Amari or Drake London over there. But anyways, I do think anywhere he'll go, he'll end up being the number 1 right away. And the type of targets that he's going to garner are exactly what we're looking for. High value red zone targets. So
I remember early on he was being mocked to the Eagles. How you felt about that landing spot?
With how run heavy they're about to go, I'm not sure. That wouldn't be the best. That's probably not the best spot for any wide receiver right now. I've actually been trying to get out from underneath my Devontae Smith shares, a few that I do have, just to whoever is still a believer in Devontae Smith.
I'm still a believer. I'm just about a believer in the offense.
And Sirianni and what they got going on.
If I'm going to invest in that Eagles offense, it's going to be the quarterback. It's going to be Hurts. That's it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I have Hurts pretty much everywhere, but nothing really else from that offense because I feel like they want to run everything through him, control the clock, and control the ball and just run the shit out of the ball with him and their running tandem.
But so here's the value then. Because all the Eagles running backs are not going high in redraft. So if you believe they're going to run, take Hurts out the picture, why aren't, the running backs getting any value?
Main thing is because of red zone carries. I mean, Hurts vultured so many touchdowns from like Miles Sanders had hundreds of yards in several games last year and no touchdowns. So I mean, that just shows you who they really want to give the ball to in the red zone. You know what I mean? They want to give it to Hurts. They want to shift towards the quarterback run. You know what I mean? And it was evident. I mean, there were games when I had Jalen Hurts on a lot of my fantasy teams last year. There were games when his performance as a passer was not the reason why he's putting up. It was absolutely not the reason why he's putting up points. He's putting up points because he had, 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. 40 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. That 40 yards shows that he's not doing a high volume, but the 2 touchdowns shows that he's getting the touches in the red zone area, short area red zone. So, if he's going to continue to do that, I definitely wouldn't necessarily want any of the running backs, even no matter how high a volume they go in Philadelphia, primarily because if I were to want a running back from that type of situation, I would want a lead running back who is on the field full time. Their backfield is so compartmentalized between Sanders and Gainwell and what have you that there's just so little left over for those guys to break up.
And then I seen a running back mock there, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, no, they don't need another running back. It's like they got enough.
Hey, it blew my mind. I was like, not another one.
Yeah, right. No, they don't need another one. What they need to do is invest back in their D line.
Like, wow.
Yeah, they need to get back their defense back into where it needs to be, basically. If they're going to run the ball the way they want. But anyways.
It was Rashard White was mocked there.
To
the Eagles. I said, wow.
What?
I was like, the Eagles wilding if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, that's them saying they want a true.
Draft the 5th round.
Oh, Rashad White is not going to be in the 5th round.
I don't believe he's going high. So I think fantasy people love him more than NFL. I think people are mistaken. I'm seeing people put him over Spiller. I'm like, Spiller's being mocked to the 3rd. Rashard White being mocked to the 5th. Yeah, that's an easy win for me. I'm going Spiller side. I don't care how y'all feel about Spiller. I'm going to the guy that's going to be drafted over the 3rd round over the 5th round.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. The projected draft capital is definitely a big deal, but like I was saying last year, there were plenty of guys projected in the 3rd who fell to the 7th. Plenty of guys projected in the 5th who went in the 2nd. You know what I mean? Or different.
Who the hell was projected in the 5th went to the 2nd?
So last year, Ramondre Stevenson was projected, I believe, in the 5th round. And he went in the 3rd.
I'm about to say because that was
Trey Sermon was projected in the 5th round and he went in the 3rd to the Niners too. So there are different guys, especially with the running back position. It can be a little bit, shifty. But wide receiver is a little bit more solid. But like same thing with Seth Williams. He was projected in the 3rd, 4th round and ended up dropping the 6th, 7th round. So, I just think the main thing with these guys is a lot of these positional groups that we keep going over, and a lot of it's going to depend on draft capital and landing spot. Just because the offensive side of the ball is just not as deep as the defensive side of the ball this year. So it's the draft. I don't think anybody really has a full handle on it. I think ADPs are all over the place a little bit. Projections are all over the place.
Since it's not like I'm the greatest at projecting wide receivers. I'm at this point, like, if you're not drafted in the 1st or 2nd round, I really don't want no part of it. I'll just take a shot at a running back. I don't give a damn when he drafted, maybe.
Well, that's actually not a bad point that you just brought up because not just in the NFL draft do I think that's true, but in the rookie drafts that we do too. Same story, man. I won't with later round picks like in the 3rd and the 4th. I'm not taking shots on 3rd and 4th round wide receivers. What could they possibly end up becoming? If they have 3rd and 4th round grades and you're a rookie, what could they possibly end up becoming? We're talking about a guy who ends up becoming KJ Hamler, or a guy who ends up becoming Scotty Miller, or a guy who ends up becoming Hunter Renfrow. That's the best that those kind of guys, those 3rd and 4th round guys, could end up being. But now, conversely, we talk about the running back position. And a guy like Ramondre, who was going in the 3rd last year, or even better, Elijah Mitchell, who's going in like the 4th last year, late 3rd, turns into a starting running back for one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. Well, then that's what you're going to get out of that guy. You got a starting running back out of that guy. So my whole point is it's much, much better of a bet to bet on running backs in these later rounds and take your shot on athleticism and like hoping that a situation works out or a guy falls into a situation, rather than wide receivers, just because wide receiver position is just so much more dependent upon actual talent, in my opinion, rather than the actual situation. That's kind of how I approach it when I go to draft. It's just like I'm thinking wide receivers earlier and I'm thinking running backs a little bit later, and more of a shotgun approach with the running backs later too. People don't really like 4th round picks. I'll eat up 4th and 3rd round picks just so I can take like 5 or 6 backs from the back end of drafts.
It's the draft to eat up all them late round picks because it's deep. It's pretty deep, full of running backs.
Yeah, exactly. Especially this year, I don't think that there's like a lot of great top end backs. I mean, you talk about Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker. But they're not exactly like far and away like Najee was last year, or far and away like Javonte, was last year. I think these guys are a little bit more tempered, but the back end of the class is much deeper and much more elaborate. So you can pick up a guy like a Damian Pierce late. You can pick up a guy like a Zamir White late, just because there's so many guys that probably went before him that, you can play the Sincere McCormick game. You can play you can play these guys who maybe don't have perfect profiles and then just shotgun approach it and take 5 of them at a cheap cost. And then 1 or 2 of them end up getting a starting role, and then they're worth first-round picks that you can flip for, future capital, or use them if you're in a position to win now. Just use them, get the points out of them, So that's just kind of
try to make our way through these wide receivers. Now, my top 5, like I said, they're always in the same tier. Just depends on, I guess landing spot. Really, Garrett Wilson, number 1, Treylon Burks, number 2. Jamison Williams, number 3, Drake London, number 4, and Chris Olave, number 5. Run through your 6 through 10 quick. You don't have to give me any details or anything. I just wanted to see where you got them at.
Okay. So at like 5 and 6, Jamison Williams and Chris Olave. And then from there I had Sky Moore, and then I had David Bell, and then so Sky Moore at 7, David Bell at 8, and then at 9 I had Justin Ross, and then at 10 I have Jahan Dotson, and then at 11 honorable mention Wandale Moore. One guy though.
How you feel about? Well, I got 2 people to ask you about. One, how you feel about Christian Watson?
So that's an interesting one for me. He is climbing up my board. I think I have him at 12. I think it says right here. Yeah, 12. And he was originally at 16 for me. So he is pushing his way up. I'm just not as bought in as everybody else is. I do think him testing well and being the physical freak that he is great. But he also didn't really he didn't go wild at South Dakota or at what is it? South Dakota State? North Dakota State? I get them mixed up sometimes. Sorry. But at North Dakota State, he didn't exactly go wild. He didn't, and that's what I want from these guys who are in the lower levels. Like or at the, not in the Power 5 or in the BCS or the FBS. You want these guys to go wild against, the lower level competition. And he just didn't really necessarily do that. Now, North Dakota State's a run-first offense. They run like the pound, and then hit you deep kind of a thing. So the volume necessarily wasn't going to be there for him anyways. But I don't know how much I can trust it. I am hearing that NFL scouts are starting to become big on this guy, mainly because there aren't many wide receivers in this class with his height and his size and his frame, and because he did perform well at the combine. But I'm not going to totally
senior day week.
Yeah, and Senior Bowl he did well. Don't get me wrong. At Mobile, I did notice him. That's the first place I did notice him, to be honest with you. So he did come on my radar at that time, and he has been rising since then. But I can't force a guy up there who ran against these kind of corners and then still didn't dominate, still didn't put up that kind of, And when I watched the film too, you talk about separation. He didn't get much separation in my eyes. It was mainly the separation he did get was busted coverages from poor coverage, or they were based on scheme because they run the shit out of the ball and they draw in coverages, and then he just is running against one safety deep because they're playing like 8 in the box, kind of a thing. And so it's mainly just busted coverages, good scheming by his offensive coordinator with being run heavy and drawing defenses in. And different things worked in his favor, and yet again, he still didn't put up massive numbers. You know what I mean? It kind of makes me temper it a little bit. A guy that I would be a little bit more bigger on, honestly, than him would be Khalil Shakur out of Boise State. I'll be honest with you. Like, he seems like a pro's pro to me. He seems like he's technical. He's he cares for every step that he takes. He's a full effort guy. That's kind of the guy that I want if I want like a smaller school guy who's going to come through, even though doesn't have the same physical profile that Christian Watson has. The athletic and production profile that Khalil Shakir has is just it's just outstanding for a guy from BCS and Boise State in particular. And I just really liked his attitude with the ball and without the ball, just full effort all the time, and comes from a pro-style system. Boise State runs an NFL offense, so he will translate really well. I think he won't skip a beat. I think they do pretty well. A lot of Boise State receivers transition decently well, even though they aren't physically dominating type guys. They transition usually pretty well. I would rather take a later shot on a guy like Khalil Shakir more than anything than necessarily Christian Watson. Now, I have heard things that the NFL likes Christian Watson. So if he moves up boards, like let's say Christian Watson goes in the 3rd round, then yeah, he will move up my board a little bit more because that's earlier than I thought he'd go. But
I've been seeing him mocked higher than that.
Really? Like where? In the 2nd round or something?
Higher.
Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness. I couldn't even imagine.
Like, I'm going to be honest. He's not on my board, Brendan board. He only mocked the 1st round. He's not on his board.
Right.
But on the other guy I was looking at, they mocked him at the end of the 1st round to the Chiefs. And I was like, well, I think that's a little too high. I was like, he didn't jump the shark. I think, 2nd round, it might be more so. But I like this guy. But for me, this is going to be a case study for me to decide how I'm going to go forward with small school receivers.
Okay.
Because
this is a good example to do that.
Yeah. If he doesn't make it, I'm not even giving nobody a try.
All right. Yeah.
No one's going to have a chance with me if he doesn't make it, because he has all the tools, to do it. So if he don't make it, nobody getting a chance with me.
No, I agree. And that's the thing with these small school guys is it's just such a crapshoot sometimes as far as what you expect from them at the next level, just because they went against an inconsistent level of play. And at the end of the day, you can't dissect everything they did in the past season. So, I just think that he's just not somebody I'm willing to take a gamble on as high as some people go. The only reason I would is if he did accumulate that kind of draft capital. I won't ignore draft capital. I won't ignore landing spot. But I think this is more of a reaction to supply and demand again. Like I was talking about the Ramondre Stevenson situation last year. Now that was a response to supply and demand of like larger backs being in a short supply. And now this is going to be a response to larger wide receivers being in short supply. And there's a lot of like smaller guys in this class. And Christian Watson is like one of the only guys who's 6'3" or taller. And I think that's what's working for him the most. But I don't think that anybody should let that primarily affect their decisions or their judgment of his true talent and how he's going to integrate in the next level. I just don't think we should overvalue him just because he's one of 4 guys who's 6'3" or taller. You know what I mean? In this class. So
the next guy I want to talk about holds a special place in my heart, where he held a special place in my heart until he ran a 40 that I couldn't get behind.
Who's that?
I think he went out there and ran like a 4.63 at his pro day, and of course I had to give him the 0.5. Add that, so that's 4.68.
Yeah.
Justin Ross. Sorry, Justin Ross. I don't like it. And I love me some Justin Ross, but I just had to temper all my expectations when he ran that 40. Didn't run a 20-yard shuttle. I'm like, just nothing stood out from his pro day. I dropped all my expectations on him. Had to simmer him down because he didn't look like the Justin Ross I seen when he first showed out in college.
It's funny that you say that because that was a similar response I had to his pro day too. Was this doesn't seem like the same guy he was when he was a freshman, fully healthy. Did the neck injury really affect him that much? Did it make him a more hesitant player? Did it affect his overall speed and athletic ability? Did it you know what I mean? Did it take something away from him? Again, these are like questions that everybody has right now just because he's been out of the game so long and he was so effective as a freshman. And then he sustained such a significant, important injury. It's not like he just fractured an arm or, even had an ACL or something. This dude injured his neck. I mean, the main highway of your nervous system to the rest of your body. So, it could be questionable that he, even ever performs the same way again, or he's even the same athlete anymore. So I totally understand where you're coming from and maybe dropping him down a little bit. He did drop down from, I think, 7 or 8 to 9 for me. And that was primarily because, that question came in my head when I saw his pro day. I was like, is this the same guy? You know what I mean? Because we have such a limited sample size of his film, I've been going off a lot of his early film. So I was hoping that this is the same guy, and that, with modern medicine and everything we got going on today, maybe doesn't skip a beat, gets healed up, everything's worked out, we move on. Because that seems to be what's going on with a lot of these ACLs. It's like they're not as severe as they used to be. These guys are coming back from them. You know what I mean? ACL, MCL tears. These guys are coming back from them. So the advancement in modern medicine is affecting the sport in a good way, because guys are coming back from injury quicker. And not only that, but not being affected as long-term by them. But, that's one thing I'm nervous with Justin Ross is whether or not he's affected long-term by that injury. I just don't know. We're not, I'm not sure. So I'm hoping not, but it seems as though he might be. So.
All right. Give me 3 sleepers that's outside of your top 10.
Okay. Well, we already covered one. Biggest one is Khalil Shakur for me.
Yeah, I got him. I got him on my list too.
Yeah.
No, I don't have him on our list. Take him back because he's a part of my top 10. That's why I don't have.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say. Yeah. No. If I wish my top 10 was larger. It was a top 12 or something, because then I'd try and sneak him in there. But yeah, he's a big one for me. Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati is a big one for me. That's a Desmond Ritter's go-to guy over there. One of the bigger receivers, very technical receiver. Didn't play against high caliber talent and struggled against high caliber talent when they did play against Alabama and those sorts of teams. Very similar to Desmond Ridder. Has a long way to go as a raw talent, but is a big, strong receiver. I like him a lot. And then, I was going to say Wan'Dale Robinson, but me having him outside my top 10 kind of makes people, a little angry, because a lot of people have him in their top 10. So it doesn't really seem as a sleeper to me, but he seems like a sleeper to me, just because I don't think he should be as high as he is. So I guess he's really not, but he's a late round guy for me. I'm a little bit out on these smaller guys that have all this crazy athleticism.
But if anyone gonna make it work, it would be him. I thought it was gonna be Rondale Moore, but he didn't go to the right offense. Nope. I wish he went somewhere. Someone have an offensive mind and was going to utilize them as much as possible. But this guy, he's a baller. So it could work, but 5'8", it ain't doing it for me.
Yeah,
so
I could see him.
You can't be in my top 10 being 5'8".
Yeah, exactly. The same here too. I'm starting to become more and more of a stickler for size, especially with those guys. And so. Yeah, no, I agree. Like Rondale, if he had gone to like a Sean McVay type system and like a Justin Jefferson role, that's perfect for a guy like that. You know what I mean? But that position and that perfect place does not exist everywhere in the NFL. I mean, that's one of 32 teams, and that position's already filled by Van Jefferson. They've re-signed him. You know what I mean? So if they're lucky enough to find that spot, that's great. But I'm not going to bank on a small guy hopefully finding a good spot. You know what I mean? And that's what it seems like these little guys or these smaller, short area, like speedy guys need, is they need to find the perfect spot. Like everybody always talks about Tyreek Hill. Well, he found the perfect spot in Andy Reid in the perfect offense. And it took him even a little while, because he didn't shine his first year with Kansas City. It took him a little while to progress with Alex Smith, and he came on in that second year with Alex Smith, and then Patrick Mahomes really opened him up as a wide receiver. You know what I mean? So I just think that like these short area guys and these speedy guys, they need so much to be successful that I'm just not, I want a guy who doesn't need much to be successful. I want a guy who's going to be successful no matter where he goes, almost. You know what I mean? And that's not true for anybody. No matter where someone goes, they're not going to be, there are some terrible situations out there in the NFL. But
And don't it make you mad when a team drafts a player? They know damn well they're not going to use them correctly. It's like
exactly. Like,
I just, I just, I
how does
just,
he fit in your offense? Exactly.
I'm so confused. It's like it's in my mind, these general managers can't be on the same page as the coach. It can't. It's impossible when you drafted someone like CEH, and his most talented skill is pass catching, and you're not going to throw him the ball. When you drafted someone
use
like
them as the
Trey
opposite
Sermon,
direction.
when you know someone like Elijah Mitchell better fit your offense because you like people that don't think much when they run. You like them to be instinctual or just one cut and sprint. Someone like Trey Sermon do not fit your system. Stop playing.
Yeah, don't waste your time is really what it is.
know?
Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time too. I mean, you're wasting a dude's time. You're wasting his opportunity in the NFL.
Give me a quarterback that needs separation to throw it. So there's a lot of quarterback that needs to see the separation before they throw.
Yeah, I mean that's Kirk Cousins if you ask me.
You shouldn't be drafting Drake London to a quarterback that needs to see separation from the defender before they throw the ball.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of this whole thing though in the NFL of like drafting the best player. But at the end of the day, you have to draft the best player that fits your team if you're trying to win a game. I mean, you know what I mean? And the NFL, some of the organizations get harped on so much for not taking such and such guy with this pick or not take, you know what I mean? Why'd you let that guy drop and this and that they start to get self-critical and make bad decisions. You know what I mean? And there are organizations that are flat out bad at making those decisions come draft day. And there are organizations that are good at it. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you just hope that whoever you're big on goes to one of those teams that knows how to handle. Like you're saying, you called one of the best ones in the whole entire league, the Steelers. They don't give up on their players. They follow through. They treat them like family. They let them finish out their contract to give them a real shot. You know what I mean? That's another thing we need to think about when we're, going through these guys is,
if the Steelers give up on a player, it's a red flag.
Yeah, that means
they're not going to be. They're not going to be in the league long, and that's shown. They're not going to be in the league long if they give up on you.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And that's the thing is like knowing a team's MO and how they operate and how they treat players is a big part of landing spot too. Not just being like, oh, well, will he be good in this offense? Well, how long are they going to give him? Like, does he need a while to progress? Is this the organization that will give him a time to progress? Are they going to throw him into the fire? What kind of situation does he have as in a backup? You know what I mean? Is he the backup? All that shit. So, I definitely think that my big approach to a lot of these prospects is excuse me, I want guys who are going to force their way onto the field, not a coach who has to manipulate an offense to get them on the field. You know what I mean? And that's my big difference between those little short area receivers that we're talking about and like a guy like George Pickens or a Drake London or even like your guy Christian Watson. I would rather have a Christian Watson than like a Wan'Dale Robinson, just simply because that guy can be, if he becomes a true X receiver and like we think he can be, that guy can force his way on the field and be a number one for whatever is behind center at quarterback, and whoever is calling plays, rather than, oh, I need Sean McVay calling my plays in order to make me effective, or I need Kyle Shanahan calling my plays to make me effective. If Arthur Smith is calling my plays, I won't fit in his offense well, so I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't want that guy, because what if that guy gets traded? Even if he falls into the greatest situation ever, what if 2 years from now he gets traded? You know what I mean? I mean, and then his value could just, collapse. You know what I mean? So, you want guys that'll stand alone and be strong and retain value based on their talent rather than situation.
So my 3 sleepers outside of my top 10, one of them you might not even know. So I do have Justin Ross.
Sure.
He dropped so far for me. Took him out of my top 10.
He became a sleeper, huh?
Yeah, he's a sleeper.
He went to sleep. You put him to sleep.
Jalen Tolbert.
Okay.
You know, he has some attributes I like.
Yeah.
And then there's a guy I haven't heard not one person ever speak of that stood out for me, and that's Jaquari Robertson.
Jaquari Robertson?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, haven't heard not one person ever
No, I
mention
can't.
this guy.
No, I
but
can't
he
say that
stood out
I've
for me.
watched him yet. Where does he go to school at?
Wake Forest.
Have you seen much of his film, or have you watched much
Yeah,
of that?
I've seen some of his film. Decent size, 6'1", 186, ran a 4.48 after I gave him the .05 bump.
Okay.
You know, so long arm, track ball well, gets yards after catch. He was a part of the Prime Bowl. There you go.
Yeah, I'll have to check him out. I'm writing his name right down right now.
Yeah.